Hi, my name's Carl Valentine. I'm the Managing Partner of PVW Partners here in Townsville. So a lot of businesses in Townsville are asking what support is going to be available from government to help them through the COVID-19, what's emerging as a crisis. It's fair to say that the government response is evolving. So the information I'll share this morning is likely to change again in the next couple of days. So at this stage, what we know is that the state government is offering interest-free loans of up to $250,000 to small and medium-sized businesses in Queensland. We haven't actually looked at what other states are doing because many of the businesses here in Townsville do operate in multiple states. So that's something to watch out for. The other thing the state government is offering is deferral of payroll tax until August. So a 4 to 5 month deferral of payroll tax payments. So that's helpful, but it'd be wonderful to see a little bit more assistance from state governments. The federal government to date has announced 4 key measures to help small and medium-sized businesses. So the main one that most businesses are going to be interested in is if you turn over less than $500 million and have employees, you can get a payment of up to $25,000 when you start lodging your activity statements from March through to June. And the way that's calculated, it's 50% of your pay-as-you-go withholding amount in your activity statement. If you lodge monthly, you'll get up to 150% of your withholding amount in the March activity statement. So businesses should start seeing some of that cash flowing back from the time they lodge their March activity statement, which could be as soon as early April. So that's a couple of weeks away. A lot of businesses will need to make a decision around whether they actually want to proceed with lodging their activity statements if they owe more than $25,000. And what we would be encouraging business people to do is to seek deferral arrangements from the ATO for the payment of any taxes on their March, April, May, June BASs. And the ATO has said deferral arrangements will be available, but you need to apply for them. In the future, we'd love to see the government actually make an announcement that there's an automatic deferral for small and medium-sized businesses. So that's the first key point, up to $25,000 of cash back to small and medium-sized businesses. The second point that the federal government has announced is that if you turn over less than $500 million, you'll be able to claim an immediate deduction for new or second-hand asset purchases of up to $150,000. There, for assets that you purchase from now through until 30 June, you'll be able to write that off in full. That's a good measure if you're in a taxable position. A lot of businesses may not be in a taxable position come 30 June. So it'll be interesting to see how much benefit that actually provides. The third measure that the federal government has announced is that through until June 2021, if you turn over less than $500 million, you'll be able to claim an additional 50% depreciation after you acquire an asset. So you get the first half of the cost of an asset as a deduction in the year you buy it up to June 2021, and then after that, normal depreciation rules will apply. So again, that's a future tax saving. It doesn't actually put cash back in the pocket of businesses now, but one to watch out for. And the fourth element is support for apprentices of up to $7,000 per apprentice over the next 6 months or so. So that's another one that businesses that employ apprentices should be looking at. So there's 4 key elements of the federal support for now. From discussions this morning, I understand the federal government is looking at further stimulus and incentives. So please do watch out for more updates from your advisors or from other sources as we go forward. So that's the key elements of business support for now. We do expect that to expand. In terms of what a business should be thinking about, I think a really key point here is that we all need to remember that we are in this together. When the music stops, it's going to stop for all of us. Businesses are already starting to lose customers. People aren't either going to work, they're not out in public as much. New restrictions announced today is that you're not meant to have more than 100 people in a room together at the same time. So that's going to impact a lot of businesses directly. So those businesses are going to start to see impacts on their cash flows. So I think the first thing that businesses need to be aware of is the impacts on their cash flows. And I would really encourage businesses to be working with other businesses to see how we can support each other through these times. As I said, we are in this together and we need to work together. So I think 4 key areas that businesses most businesses need to be thinking about is their tax-related cash flows, and I talked earlier about how the ATO will be deferring some of those. We'd like to see an automatic deferral to really help the tax-related cash flow so that no business has to pay tax for a period of, say, up to 6 months. Bank obligations is another key one. So making sure that businesses are actively engaging with their banks. If they've got loan repayment obligations coming up, we would recommend that they're proactively approaching their banks, discussing what their cash flow forecast looks like, so they're on the front foot with that discussion. Several banks have made public announcements around special measures through these difficult times, so people should be checking their bank websites or talking to their business banking manager to understand what might be available for them. Rent is going to be another potentially problematic area for businesses. So again, we'd encourage people to be engaging with their landlords to see what relief might be available, whether that's a reduction in rent, a deferral of payment. We need to be having those discussions with landlords. Difficult for landlords though, because they've probably got financial obligations as well. So if the tenant stops paying, how does the landlord keep paying their mortgage on the property? So that's another area where we think some government assistance should be supplied in the future, and that might involve something like a government guarantee of some of that debt, so the bank is willing to carry the debt position longer to support the landlord who's not collecting rent for a period. So there's a whole ecosystem here that needs to be considered. And the fourth area is thinking about your people, the employees in your team. So I'm sure, like me, most business owners want to keep paying their employees as long as they possibly can. They want to keep them engaged, they want to keep them in the team, keep them productive. But there is unfortunately going to be businesses who can't do that indefinitely. So as long as they can, they want to do that. Businesses should be taking advice as to what their obligations are, and if the worst case happens and they have to part with employees, they want to make sure they do that in an appropriate way. So we'd be encouraging businesses to be consulting with their HR or legal advisors about what their options are. Can they offer casual or part-time employment to keep people on the books and keep paying them for some work as opposed to letting them go entirely? So making sure you really understand what your obligations are and what opportunities exist to flex arrangements a little bit with your employees so everyone can get through this together. Some of the other points I wanted to raise here is that for a lot of businesses today, the impacts aren't clear of what the next 6 months are going to hold in store. For those that are being directly impacted, particularly tourism, hospitality and retail, they're already feeling the effects quite strongly. For other businesses around town, the effects are now indirect and maybe more of a distraction to business as usual than a direct effect. But I think the reality is all businesses are going to feel impacts of this before too long. So businesses shouldn't stick their head in the sand and think this isn't going to affect me. So we do want business owners expecting some impacts and being prepared for those impacts. How do they prepare? Well, I think in the first instance, as I was saying, make sure you understand your cash flow position, and if the cash flows aren't going to be there, then look at where your cash outflows are, your taxes, your bank obligations, rent, employees being four key ones, and trying to get on the front foot with actively managing those obligations so you can keep your business going. Do consider the opportunities for different business outcomes from this. I'm not suggesting for a minute any business should seek to benefit from the crisis, but it'd be quite rational to look for what opportunities exist to do your business differently or do new business to keep the business going and serve the community at the same time. So be open to other ways of carrying on your business. The obvious one for a lot of businesses that don't involve consumers is working from home, remote work. But even if you are serving consumers, what other opportunities exist? I've heard some great stories around town of restaurants and hospitality businesses switching to a home delivery model. So that's not an overnight fix, but evolving to that might provide them with continuity of their business and create new employment opportunities for delivery drivers, for example. So again, not an overnight fix, but will help them longer term survive through these times. Making sure from your cash flow forecasts you do know how much cash you've got and what your bare minimum cash flow requirement is to survive. If you can see that a cash crunch is coming and that you will run out of cash to run your business, you want to be proactively managing the lead up to that so that you can continue to look after your employees and suppliers in a responsible way and not have a big surprise when perhaps the inevitable comes for some businesses. Making sure you're talking to your clients, I think, or your customers, that's really important. So being on the front foot, communicating with the stakeholders in your business, so clients, customers, employees, banks, landlords. I think I've covered that point enough. So be communicating proactively with all those parties. I think it's important business owners take care of themselves as well and their people, but don't lose sight of that need for self-care. So one thing we saw after the floods was the mental health impacts on business. And the floods were only 12 months ago. There's still a lot of business people who are trying to recover from the floods. And if that's not recover in a business sense, then that's in a personal sense. The scars of the flood are still very fresh. So business owners through these times as well need to make sure they have good support people around them. And if they don't have that or feel like they need something else, then they should seek professional assistance on a proactive basis. Not only do we need healthy business people, at the end of this we need healthy businesses too. So don't forget to look after yourself as a business owner or business manager through these times. Maybe on a more positive note, this won't last forever. Albeit while we're in it, it is going to feel like this is probably, and maybe it will be, one of the worst things we ever go through as business owners and a business community. But we will come through this. There has to be a message of hope as well, that while some of my discussion today has been a little bit on the negative side, which isn't like me at all, there will be an end to this. And as a business community, through supporting each other, we will come through this and our businesses will be stronger and better for us, for the situation, and we will live to fight another day and grow with our economy when the recovery starts from these times. So when business owners are looking at their businesses and what they need to be doing, I'd suggest that there's probably three key areas they can be looking at. They need to look at their people, so their teams. They need to look at their market, which is their customers, their suppliers and other stakeholders, and also at their own organisation, their own business structure. So I encourage business people to looking at the people element of that in three key areas, the three Ps. So the first one is protection. So make sure you are protecting yourself and your team from any risk. So if that means self-isolating, closing the doors for a period of time, asking people to work at home, do what you've got to do to protect your people. They are your most important asset and the most important part of our community. So protect your people. The second one is productivity. So it's important, notwithstanding how terrible the times could become, that businesses do stay as productive as they come. We need strong and healthy businesses to come through these times. So we need to be actively working on productivity measures so businesses can continue on. And the third one is pay. So the third P. We want to make sure businesses are able to keep paying their employees and paying their suppliers. So from that people perspective, think about protect, productivity and pay. We do encourage business owners to consult with their advisors. We'd also be happy at PVW Partners to talk to any business that needs help through these times.